This is a panel of our customer changemakers. So we actually invited 3 of our customers over. So we have Laura Bissmeyer from Corning. We have Ulrich Piepel from Innogy, and Bruno Stock from Danone on stage. And to start with, let's just jump right into it. These are our change makers. They're actually leading change in their organizations. And what we'll do today is just talk through that. And let's start with actually introductions. So if you could basically introduce what your company does, your role within the company, and what are you using from Tradeshift to start with? Maybe Laura, do you want to start?
Sure. So Corning Incorporated is a materials conversion company, predominantly in the ceramics and glass space. We have 5 different large businesses and several emerging businesses at the moment. Fiber optics, catalytic converter filters and substrates. Life Sciences division has serums as well as lab equipment. If any of you guys did research in college, you might have used some of our lab equipment. We have the LCD glass, the big flat screen glass like these monitors, et cetera. And then we have the Gorilla Glass, which is a little bit more on the commercial side that you see in the iPhones and on the several different smartphones and devices. I'm currently the director of source-to-pay operations. I have supply chain digitalization as well as supplier quality and the data office in my purview.
Great. Ulrich?
Yeah, I'm Chief Procurement Officer of Innogy. We are a utility company. You might know RWE, which is the old company, and due to the German energy change, we separated all the conventional power plants from the rest of the business. So Innogy's having no more nuclear, no more gas, no more coal. We are the good ones. We own all the renewables, all the grid, all the sales activities, basically. And I'm running supply chain my whole life, so I started my career as somebody who became a mechanical engineer, but did production planning and supply chain procurement all my life in different companies. And as a utility company, we are serving mainly Europe. So we have in UK it's npower, in Netherlands it's Ascent, in Germany it's Innogy, in Eastern Europe, so on. So it's basically all good energy through nice networks coming to all a couple of hundred or a couple of thousand millions of customers throughout Europe.
Great. And Bruno?
So I am Bruno Stock. I'm the procurement operation of Danone. So my role in Danone is to transform the procurement in terms of core model. How are we going to operate? How are we going to digitalize this company? So Danone is a food company, around 25 billion euro. We have a budget of 16 billion euro to manage. We are involved everywhere in the world, and we have 3 main pillars, which are the yogurt division, the food baby division, and the water division.
Yeah, and I love Danone yogurt for sure. So, so I think coming to the topic, I think the topic is you as change makers, and I think the first question I would have is, what is your role as a change maker? So you have your procurement operations or whatever title, but what is your role as a change maker in your company, and what are some of your goals or your vision around that? And whoever wants to go first, maybe Laura, because I think I am actually very familiar with your role.
Yeah, so I actually came from the innovation side of Corning, the product and technical process development space. And I was recruited into the supply chain space, the supply management space, by the Senior VP of Supply Chain, Cheryl Capps, who had the foresight that said, if we're going to transform this space, we need people in it who want to change, who bring change, right? And so my whole life, you never want to put me into a job where you want it to stay the same or you just want it to operationally become efficient. I'm really about transformation and how you can do things differently. And one of the benefits of coming into procurement as a newbie was that I didn't have any preconceived ideas, and I could ask a lot of the questions of, well, why do we do it that way? Well, that's kind of silly. And work with the people on the ground who didn't want to be doing that work all the time. They wanted to be more strategic. They wanted to get some of that non-value added time of trying to fix things out of their days. And so in a partnership, we've been, over the last 4 years, really transforming how we buy and pay for things in Corning.
And so when you reached there, did they welcome you with open arms, or did you get a lot of resistance?
Initially, they welcomed me with open arms.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny because it's like a love-hate relationship now that I have with. I've had people drive 8 hours to come up and tell me how upset they are that I've changed their job. But the results are hard to argue, right? And so you have to defend it with data. It took a while to get the data because the change comes with, it takes time to get the change through the system and to start seeing the results in the work that you're measuring. But the data is how we now defend the naysayers and the haters. We still have a lot out there. We have made the Tradeshift decision. It is swimming upstream against a lot of currents, but we'll prevail. It's the right thing to do, and we're going to get the results. We're probably going to get better results than we actually initially claimed. We're seeing that we're going to get better results than we initially thought. So I think that'll help us when the story's finally written.
So that's great. And maybe if I can ask Bruno, when you think of yourself as bringing change into Danone, what is a role that you think of, or what are some goals that you've taken on?
I think we have to look at by the angle of the business. The business is completely transforming. Our environment, we were speaking about sustainability and all this stuff, for us is key. So we have new values that we need to create. So we need to transform this procurement from a productivity mindset to a value-add company, and to really bring value to the business. So looking at that, there is a big transformation to be done within the procurement, which will impact the way of working, because I do not believe that the buyer of today will be the buyer of tomorrow, in terms of what they need to do. And if I resume also in two things. Today, buyers are doing everything. They spend 40% of the time looking for data. That's the first thing. And the second thing, they all dream to forecast the price. So, because that will help to give the right future for the company. So, looking at that, you have to transfer completely the company. So, the first step we did was to create a company, Dantrade. That was in 2012. So, we move everyone. So, in this kind of change, technically, it's not an issue. The change is the people. The people is how do you embark them? How do you convince them? How you develop them also to be part of the model? The other very interesting, we were a very decentralized company. So that means we needed to design one core model. So believe me, nobody believed it was possible at the beginning. And it's just a question of mindset. So now we have one core model, at least for procurement on operating the Rosen pack. And everything is possible is how long are you going to do that? How long are you going to mature that within the organization?
So change always actually gets stuck on people, right? And I think change maybe needs two things. One is tools, and the other thing is people. And actually, let's delve a little bit deeper. But I think, can I ask Ulrich maybe, just to understand your role in the change that you're driving at Innogy, or what is Innogy actually experiencing, and what are you driving for?
Yeah, as I said, I'm running procurement and supply chain my whole life, and when let's be honest, procurement always says we are important, we have billions of dollars to spend, and I went with my heads at RWE at that time into their office, or into the offices of the buyer, and I said, "You think you're important? You're piling up paper. You're doing nothing productive. You're just operating. You're just transactional because, as you said, they're looking for data, Or when you do a request, they print out the request and they mail it to suppliers, and then they get the answers back and again paper, and then they have to punch in everything into SAP. Is that really value creating? No, it's not value creating. Then they get faxes from suppliers. We don't deliver on week 50, but week 49, and we don't deliver 100 pieces, but 98. So they have to enter that into the system. It's no productive. So let's forget it that we are important. And I asked my people, do you want to be important? So we have to get rid of that. So we have to really change the whole process. Then our CEO came up with the idea, let's nearshore that. And I told him, hey, Peter, this is bullshit. Because if you're exporting bullshit to some other countries and do nearshore, you may have a cheaper bullshit, but it's still bullshit. Yeah. I did my PhD on robotics, so I believe in automation. I mean, maybe not to be the youngest guy in this room, but I love all this stuff. So I'm hooked on that. It's not a question of age, it's a question of mind change. And that's what we did. And we had big resistance because people felt that they got rid of their job doing e-auctions. You know, when you ask a buyer, what's your best skill? They're saying, I'm a good negotiator. Now comes this Dr. Piepel up and says, bullshit, you're doing that not anymore. It's the e-auctioning system. They are scared. So what you have to do as a change manager, to give the people a vision where you want to be, and that we change with them and to train them. But there's no question, I'd never left it open. I wanted 100% automated, which is not possible. So, but we're shooting for 100% on every single step of the supply chain. And we did that. We did KPIs, so I benchmarked that. It was in our target agreement, so automation KPIs, not savings KPIs, automation KPIs. Yeah, how much automation on accounts payable, how much automation on electronic requests, how much automation on the volume you're spending, and so on. So a lot of data which we collected, and that all with the vision I gave to people, and that made the change. Yeah.
So you talked about to bring change, you have to establish a vision. You talked about you have to actually show the data to convince people. Is that, Bruno, is that your experience as well? Or how are you driving change within your organization? How are you convincing people?
You convince people because they see the world changing also around them and they want to be part of it. So you, by giving the vision, you show them how to do that. And you show them what role they can have, which is key. After you have another subject this is very costly, this kind of change. So you have also to embark your COMEX and everyone. And this is the part which is sometimes very, very complex to be done. Yeah. Because the change, can happen, but you need also the means to make it happen. And to make your business case, we are still in a way of making business case, it's always complex, I will say. Yeah. It's the other part that complexifies the life of the change. Yeah. But I think when you embark the people, they start to be self actor in the system. And I think it's always, I say, you can design the change by yourself. But it will not happen. You have to design the change with the people if you want to see it really happen.
So
may I add something to that?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Change. For example, you have to move into another building or another house or so. Change is sometimes great because when you know that you're moving into a wonderful, let's say, a house which is with a lake and a boat up front, you're willing to change. If you're moving into a ramshackle apartment, that's not your way. So we have to show people that there's something in for them. Then they love change. If it's bad for the people, then they hate change. And it's just to make it simple. You have to tell people if you want to be important, if you want to have more money, if you want to have more job security, because that is going to be outsourced by our CFO if we don't pay attention to them. We have to do it ourselves. So people have to love change, and you only love change when there's something good in that for you.
Right, I think that's totally true, and I think we tend to say change is bad, people are resisting. It's because people can't see their path of how this will become good for them.
Right.
I mean, we actually embrace change all the time in our lives. Like when you get married, everybody's excited when they get married, and that's a major change that they go in they jump into it. So you're absolutely right. It's about showing them the path of what this becomes.
What's in for the people?
Right?
What's in for you? Then they love it, and then you don't have to, let's say, always kick ass. Otherwise, they're doing it themselves. Yeah.
Well, I mean, Corning's a 68-year-old company, right? And we hire to retire. Still today, we have very low turnover in our company, and so with that brings the challenge of change, right? And so working with the organization, because I believe all the points that Bruno and Dr. Piepel were mentioning. However, we do have to start teaching our organizations that they got to change faster. Because if we wait and every time have to build this argument, every time have to put change management people in place, every time have to run a change management project in parallel to the project, you're just not going to be able to move fast enough for what we're seeing coming, right?
So what you're saying to me is even though Corning has a long history of change and innovation, even you are experiencing faster change, and so there's a change.
Our long history of change and innovation, our product and technical process changes, they're years. Even in a faster, will still be measured in years.
Right.
These business processes can't take years.
But I will add is what we heard this morning. The change is embedded in your job now. We will not have any more stable moment. So this is a critical point to also pass to the people. Change is normal. So you can have at one moment a booster of team to help the change, but after it has to be embedded in the way people work and in the way they are going to design the next step.
Much better said. Thank you.
So we talked about people because I think that's what is emotional and actually touches us. But there's tools that enable change, and what tools or partners, even partners, are you looking at? Such as Tradeshift. What role does maybe even Tradeshift play for you in this whole move towards change? Maybe can you talk about that a little bit?
But Tradeshift, for me, yesterday I was with the head of marketing and we were speaking about what are you doing? So we spoke about Tradeshift, what does it mean? I say connection and a dream. Because this is, when I heard the first time about Tradeshift, I said, wow, this is different of the other. And they want to build something new. So this is very inspiring also for us to drive the change regarding how the vision of Tradeshift is. So after we took a part which was linked to a part of the change we needed to operate within the company, and the next step is how can we really build quicker this change through your own programs that you have, because we believe that can drive a new mindset within the company. And what I really like to Tradeshift is this openness system. So this global connectivity with the ecosystem that we need. And that will allow really to go after to robotization easily when we will have that.
So connectivity, the sort of the platform approach that Tradeshift has. And I know, Laura, that's actually a large part of why Corning has embraced Tradeshift as well. Can you maybe talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so we have Tradeshift buy, pay, go, dynamic discounting, and supply chain finance. We are in the process of implementing the pay and the buy pieces first. Those are the pieces that we've started with. And the reason that we see Tradeshift as the partner in this space is because the BHAG that we have, the big, hairy, audacious goal, if you've ever read The Good to Great with Jim Collins, is that we want to get to touchless transactions. So very similar to what you've heard from my other two panelists here. To get to touchless transactions, we need somebody who will co-innovate with us. And I don't mean co-innovate where I pay you to innovate. I mean, I want to buy the Netflix subscription, and I want my content to change and evolve as I get onto the system. I don't want to get the same movies day 1 and day 500, right? I want to have that continuous innovation, that continuous filtration that's going to take me, because we're moving so fast, I can't afford to go out. I just can't afford the time. It's not even a question of money, but I can't afford the time and the organizational energy to go out and pick tools over and over and over again and bring them in. So I need somebody who's got the vision, and I believe Tradeshift does, to take us into that future space. And then to have the platform and capability to build upon that so that it's more seamless to my organization.
Mm-hmm. So, Ulrich, does that resonate with you?
Absolutely. I can only say this is absolutely right what both peers said. I would like to say, for me, it's important that a company is, besides of what has been said, is being innovative, has a clear vision what they want, support me with what they want, be fast developing, and it has to be international software, so not, let's say, country-specific software, because we're all going global. So, and when you look at software solutions, sometimes language support is bad. Sometimes you have different issues with taxes or whatsoever, and they haven't thought of that, so we are developing that with them. That is maybe for one country, it's nice, but if you have 17 countries and you do all developing, that doesn't make any sense. So we have to have transparency and processes the same way throughout the organization, and that's helpful. And there's a lot of companies right out there. We're doing, for example, besides of Tradeshift, for example, big data process mining. Solonis, wonderful software, great guys, young, innovative. It's fantastic. So we are using all these kind of tools, and I'm sure there will be no one single supplier for a software solution for all what you're doing in supply chain in the next 5 years. I don't know, 20 years. But again, it's important that we do use tools like that, and people also adapt that way faster, because when you have complex system which people don't understand or they don't see what's going on. So I'm always talking about you have to Amazonize your process, yeah, because that's an easy thing, everybody loves it, so we have to have software which is supporting that kind of change.
Okay, great. Well, I want to ask if anybody in the audience has any questions. I'll give you guys a second to think about it, and there's some mics over there. But the next question I had was, how is your own role changing? You know, as you bring this, and you mentioned you actually came from a different part of the organization and came into supply. Do you see yourself moving to something else? What about your roles? Like, what do you see?
Personally, my change each year. So if I look at BBAC, so I've been CPO everywhere, and one day they asked me, okay, can you come to create this new company, Trade? So I did it. So that was the project. Doing that, so we have created a front, back office, etc., and said, wow, now we need someone to operate this system. So I become to be the procurement operation VP, and looking at that, say, wow, we need now to dig on data. So I'm taking care of the data, the mining of the data, not as fast as you are doing, and so each year it's changing. Now my thinking, where I was, and I was really happy to see the design, is, okay, what's the value of this team within our organization? And the value is really to be able to process and design. So I have the exchange of mail today to how are we going to train the team to be design process. So, and that, I can tell you, 2 years ago, I did not know where we go. And I think we need to be very adaptive, even for ourselves, because your role change, sometimes you have to stop some part of your job to accept the scope is changing. That makes a real change, because your change is always, for procurement, inside the other change of the company. So you are impacting the other one, and you have also to see that differently. A very big transformation we have done, it's we were by silo. And last year, it has been accepted at the committee that we go source-to-pay process on one accountability. We change completely the approach and the way you are going to organize the company behind that. So this is big impact, and you have to accept also the part for you.
So that's really interesting. You're saying it's not only your role, it's your entire organization is changing as well, and your guys are open to that. Is that something that you guys are seeing that? And we talked about this yesterday as well. Like the way we have departments today and the way we are structured is going to change in the future. And I think it's a good idea to actually change that, because otherwise you will get resistance all the way, right?
Well,
Can
you still get resistance.
Yeah.
You still get resistance. I mean, and I think so there has to be some level of tenacity in the individuals that you select in your teams, and that you make sure that they've got some thick skin, and that you make sure that you're soothing and stroking as you go along, because change is not an easy, leading change is not an easy place to be. If you're changing, adapting something that everybody else already has, it's a lot easier because you can point to a lot of stuff that says this is what it looks like. Look, these guys all did this. We're just coming in. But when you're ready to be that leading edge quartile, and you want to be one of the bleeding edge of things, and you're in a corporation that's fairly risk averse, you have to figure out how to get them there. And so you're still gonna run into that.
So you still have to
resistance.
develop a thick skin, as you're saying.
You still do.
Yeah.
And you have to help your folks
Yeah.
with that. Bring in the right people who are really good at keeping people whole as you go through it, so that you can move the organization through that transition. And I think you have to meet people with where they are. Sitting people in a training room now for 8 hours for 3 or 4 days to do a training, it just doesn't work that way anymore, right? Now you need your short video clips available, either like what Ada is doing, or for other technology, build some video clips that you can have handy that people can see while they're trying to do the work in the moment that they're doing it. So they only need that bite-sized piece of training. I mean, we all do it. You're fixing your sink at home, you pull out the YouTube. You're trying to figure out what's wrong with your car, you pull out some resources online. So meeting people with where they need to be with the information they need to have in the moment they need to have it, I think is a big part of facilitating that change.
So you have to teach people how to consume the change that's coming in different ways and in new ways.
Yeah, that's a really good thing.
Will there always be a department that will just resist it till the end? Like, there's just no hope.
No. No. Let me say that, because that's important. That's important. If you are slow, if you are, let's say, risk adverse, procurement will be dead, I'm sure. Because the issue is, right, when we started procurement, it was all transactional, no importance, and then we became strategic buyers, from square one to square two. Great. Now, every category is somehow affected by digitalization, whatever it takes. I've asked my people, do you know a category which is not affected by digitalization? And they said cleaning. I said, no. Cleaning, we have RFIDs in the front, so these things are changing, and people are doing, they know with their iPhone where they have to work and who wasn't in the office, and so on and so forth. So every category is going to be digital somehow. And if we as buyers don't want to jump back to square one, where we are getting the jobs from our business, what we have to source, but want to step into the third square, which is being a proactive, innovative, digital, and not only digital on the procurement processes, digital on the business processes, then we have to train our people and become digital. And when you ask about what do I do, how does my role change? I mean, basically, I think people look at their boss, and if their boss is not, let's say, doing fast decisions, being agile, being different in the way we communicate, we are doing that on Yammer, so they get videos instead of, let's say, long letters. I'm Twittering, I'm doing whatever stuff online, and so on. So they're getting things on a way faster feedback than before, and that's my role as a visionary for the organization. I have to show my people, hey, that's the way we're going, and we have to be fast, because otherwise we're taken over by by the business who tells us, hey, this is a new supplier, but we never heard about that, because this supplier is not coming maybe from Germany or from England, but it's coming from Tel Aviv maybe, because the digital solution is not made in Europe, but in Tel Aviv. So that's our role as procurement or supply chain experts, to really show our people, go fast, be agile, also be courageous, because German engineering, you know about that, we are doing the German engineer, over-engineer sometimes, but you have to be fast. So I'm telling my people, compared to the old world, we are still using a horse carriage, and you are doing a value analysis, whether you want a Mercedes or BMW or Audi. You can pick anyone because it's way better than a horse carriage. So don't do over-engineering, yeah? So, and then in 2 years' time, then you can switch between Mercedes or GM or whatever. Yeah.
So you're saying, create a sense of urgency because this is going to, bypass everybody.
And you have to be the role model for these guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they are not. It's like a family. When the father is doing something wrong, the kid's doing themselves, and vice versa.
Great. Any questions from the audience? Yeah? You can speak loud, that's fine.
Oh, there's a mic in the middle.
I'm not as tall as this microphone.
Oh, no.
Don't laugh. Hey, I'm Ron from Tradeshift. So you guys did a great job up there. I have
Thanks.
just a small question. So I think my view is supply chains face an existential threat right now in that they were built at a time when they were facing different kinds of problems, different amounts of problems, different amounts of data to manage. And I think the ability to move forward is going to require a digital strategy. So do you guys feel is that a catalyst for change within your organizations to think that we're really not built to manage these kind of challenges and we need to change to be competitive in the future? So,
I mean, my bias, all these category managers, for example, they need to have for each category a digital strategy. I'm personally reviewing these strategies, and I want to understand where is your innovation coming from? What are you doing? Because, you have a German buyer, his English is maybe average. I'm telling him, hey, maybe this new innovation is coming from Shanghai. How often are you in Shanghai? So you have to connect. So I'm looking at that strategy, what they're doing, how to get all these innovation from all countries of this world. Yeah. So that has to be built into each individual category strategy, and that's important. Otherwise, they don't get it because they're stuck in their old behavior of looking 50 miles around the church tower, as we're saying in Germany. So
I think you also have to expand it, right? I think bringing tools in that allow you to have visibility so that you can fix things brings more people into the picture of the solution, too. So now you can involve more folks. So when you can facilitate that visibility, making things visible, making your supply chain visible, you can now react to it real time in the moment. Mm-hmm. These guys know their jobs, right? I mean, they studied this, they grew up doing this. The organization knows how to do the work. Mm-hmm. You can speed it up by giving them tools that allows them to see and react and take action to things more quickly.
Show them data so that they can actually see the change.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So I'm looking at the clock, and we're actually out of time, but I want to do one last lightning round, so really quick, to get your perspective. What does success look like in 2 years? How would you think that your job has been successful?
For me, that will be that the procurement is recognized as creating a lot of value for the business.
Yeah.
And the way to do that will be by digitalization, because we will transfer the operational thing to the people who are doing operational thing will make strategic thing, and will think at 2-3 years in advance to really embed that within the brand and define with the brand owner the strategy that we need for the value to create.
So be seen as a value generator. Great.
I agree to that 100%, because if the business as a budget holder is coming to us without being forced by some a procurement guideline, without being forced by me being after them because of maverick buying or so, if they come to us and consider us as a wealth manager, I got a budget of 1 million, you make the most out of it, we come to you like I go to my bank or to my investment bank and say, hey, you know more about stocks than I do, here's my million, take it and make more out of that. If we get to that point, then we have really success and people consider us as the one-stop shop for supply chain procurement.
So as a wealth manager.
Okay.
Yeah, for me, 2 years, Tradeshift will be deployed, and I'll have that next big initiative moving along with demand planning and forecasting.
So moving towards touchless transactions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One step forward.
Well, I hope it's more than one step. Okay. In 2 years, I hope it's more than one step.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. I want to thank my panelists. That was a great panel. Thank you, Laura,
Pleasure.
Ulrich, and Bruno.
Thank you.
Yeah.